Listen closely to what God is telling you today. The best is yet to come. Don't give up now. Yes, you heard right. Your arrival here was not a coincidence. God wanted to meet you at this very moment, to remind you that your story will not end this way. Even though there are unanswered questions today and past that seem blocked, and situations you still don't know how to resolve, this is not the end that God has prepared for you. There are still chapters you haven't lived, doors you haven't seen open yet, and moments of peace that may seem far away today, but that might be much closer than you think. You didn't find this message just to stay trapped in all your pain. You found it to receive a word that can lift your eyes and restore your hope. God knows the weariness you carry in silence. He knows how many times you tried to keep going, even when inside you felt like you didn't have any strength left. He also knows the question that comes up when no one is listening. How much longer do I have to wait? Maybe you have prayed, trusted, and done everything in your power, but you still can't see a clear answer. Maybe a part of you wants to keep believing while another part is starting to think nothing will ever change. That's why today God is telling you, don't give up now. Just because you can see the change, yet it doesn't mean nothing is happening. Silence doesn't mean you've been abandoned, and a delay has no authority to cancel everything that can still begin. The best is yet to come. Not because life is going to become a story without any trouble, but because God can still make a way where you only see limits today. He can restore your clarity, help you find your peace again, and guide your life toward a season that is more secure, healthier, and closer to His purpose. Maybe you can't even picture what this new season will look like. Your reality seems to speak louder than hope, and every single day with no visible changes tries to convince you that nothing different is happening. But your present is not your whole story. What seems like an end right now could just be a pause before a new direction. The very thing that made you think everything was lost could become the very place where you discover that God knows paths you had never even considered. Don't give up on your hope just because of a hard season. Don't let a past disappointment become a prophecy for your entire future. God can still surprise you. Psalm 27 verse 13 says, I would have lost heart unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. David didn't speak these words from an easy life, nor when all his questions had already been answered. He spoke them after going through fear, opposition, and uncertainty. He had every reason to feel tired, but deep inside him, certainty still remained. His story wouldn't end with only what he was seeing. He still believed he would see the goodness of God, not only in some distant future, but in the middle of life, in the days that were still ahead of him. Maybe that is the certainty you need to regain today. You don't have to know every detail of what is to come. You don't need to know which door will open first when the answer will arrive, or how God will arrange what now seems out of place. Clear his throat. It's enough to remember that you still haven't seen it all. There are still conversations that can bring clarity, opportunities that haven't reached you yet, and small decisions capable of changing the direction of the next few months. There are also forms of restoration that won't consist of recovering exactly what you lost, but in receiving something healthier, more stable, and more close to the peace your heart needs. The best is yet to come, but perhaps it won't look like the image you built during the waiting. You might have asked for a door to reopen while God wants to teach you that you no longer need to go back to that same place. Maybe you were hoping a person would change, but restoration will begin when you regain the strength to stop chasing what never offered you security. Maybe you thought the best would take the form of great news, but it can start as a new peace of mind, a firm decision, an idea that awakens again, or the courage to try once more without carrying the same fear. Don't look down on quiet beginnings. Many deep transformations don't arrive with a loud noise. They start when you stop thinking that everything is over, when you start taking care of yourself again, or when you decide that a negative answer will no longer have the authority to define your entire life. In this message, we will understand why discouragement tends to intensify when a person feels they have waited too long. We will also see how past disappointments can alter the way you look at the future and make you doubt even the good possibilities that are beginning to come your way. We won't talk about a naive hope that ignores reality. We are going to build a mature hope, capable of recognizing exhaustion without handing the future over to fear. You will find that not giving up doesn't mean staying trapped in the same place, nor continuing to endure what is destroying you. In some cases, moving forward will mean persisting. In others, it will mean changing direction, setting a boundary, or accepting that God can do something new without repeating exactly what came before. But before we continue, I want to invite you to take a simple action deeply connected to this message. Write in the comments which area of your life you need to place in God's hands today. You can leave a word or a request. Maybe you need to write family work guidance, restoration, peace, or the name of a person for whom you want us to pray. You don't need to explain your whole story. That word will be a way of acknowledging that you no longer want to carry that worry completely alone. Then share this message with someone who is tired of waiting and who desperately needed to remember that their story still has a future. Click like, because through this simple gesture, you also become a messenger of God's word, helping this hope to reach someone who might have been right on the verge of giving up. And please, subscribe to keep receiving messages that strengthen your faith and remind you that God is still present even in the seasons you still don't know how to make sense of. I also want to ask you to make sure you are watching and listening to this content on our channel, God's Messages Official. Some of the audio prepared for this channel is being used or republished without our permission. That is why staying here subscribing and sharing this video directly from its original source is a beautiful way to protect and support this work, which is done with prayer, dedication, and so much love. Now, go back for a moment to the core message of this video: the best is yet to come. Perhaps a part of you desperately wants to believe this with all your strength, but another part of you keeps wondering how to trust again after so many disappointments. That inner conflict doesn't mean that you have lost your faith. It might just mean your heart has learned to protect itself before something new even has the chance to begin. Giving up doesn't always look like stopping in your tracks. Sometimes you start giving up much earlier, the moment you stop imagining that something different could still happen. That's why before we talk about the doors that are about to open, we need to take an honest look at that part of you that has started to always expect the worst outcome. Because maybe your deepest exhaustion doesn't just come from what you are going through right now, but from everything your mind fears will happen all over again. That fear of history repeating itself doesn't always show up in an obvious way. Sometimes it hides behind a phrase you say with quiet calm. I don't expect much anymore. Other times it masquerades as caution, as a need to scrutinize every single detail before you let yourself believe that something good might actually be starting. On the outside, you keep moving forward. You take care of your responsibilities. You talk to people and you do your best to keep your daily routine in order. But deep down inside, there's a part of you that remains on high alert. That part isn't just worried about what's happening today. It also remembers what happened before. It remembers the time you trusted and the answer never came. The opportunity that seemed so sure only to slip away. The conversation that promised clarity but left you with more questions. The person who spoke of staying only to walk away without a second thought for what they had awakened in your heart. After so many disappointments, your mind starts anticipating the pain, trying to make sure you are never blindsided again. If something good comes your way, you don't just accept it for what it is. You also compare it to what once seemed good, but ended up hurting you. You search for signs, overanalyze the silences, and dissect every word, trying to figure out ahead of time the exact moment when everything might change. That constant vigilance might make you feel prepared, but it rarely lets you feel at peace. Maybe that's why the exhaustion you're carrying isn't just from waiting for an answer. It also comes from imagining over and over all the different ways that answer might never come, while others just see an ordinary day you might be struggling with, a mind that won't rest. A phone call that's delayed, an email that doesn't show up, or an unfinished conversation. They all become spaces where fear starts writing its own conclusions. It's not because you want to think this way, but because your heart has learned that waiting can hurt too. There are people who, after a painful experience, stop saying out loud what they truly want. They stop talking excitedly about their plans, and they avoid sharing their expectations because they feel that giving a name to something beautiful might only make it more vulnerable. They convince themselves that it's better not to get their hopes up, but when you stop hoping just to avoid pain, you can easily start living as if all the good things have already passed you by. You become so guarded with your feelings, you shrink your desires, and you meet every possibility with a distance that makes you feel safe. Without realizing it, the very shield you built to protect yourself from getting hurt again starts to keep you from recognizing a new opportunity. You haven't lost your ability to believe. You're just tired of believing, only to end up having to pick up the broken pieces of an expectation that fell through. That's why when you hear that the best is yet to come, maybe something inside you whispers, I want to believe that, but I don't know if I can take another disappointment. God knows that struggle within you. He doesn't come close to judge you for being afraid, nor to demand that you instantly find the same hope you used to have. He draws near, patiently, because he knows there are parts of your heart that don't need pressure, they need safety. Pressure tells you that you should have gotten over all of this by now. But God's presence reminds you that you can move forward without pretending. You can admit that you're exhausted and still stay close to Him. You can confess that you don't know how to trust again and still keep a tiny window of possibility open. Maybe today you don't have the strength to dream up an extraordinary future. Maybe you can only believe that tomorrow will be a tiny bit more peaceful than yesterday. That too is hope. It doesn't always start as a powerful feeling. Sometimes it begins as a quiet, simple choice not to give up on what you haven't even seen yet. The trouble is when your heart has lived on high alert for so long it can mistake any pause for rejection and any shift for a threat. Someone takes a while to reply, and you immediately think they're losing interest. Project hits a bump in the road, and you assume it will never work out. A door is slow to open, so you decide it's been shut forever. Your mind tries to protect you by turning open possibilities into negative certainties, and so you suffer for what is happening now, and also for everything you fear might happen. When the house grows quiet, and you no longer need to tend to anyone, the questions return. What if nothing changes? What if I make another mistake? What if this time too I end up losing? These questions aren't always looking for an answer. Sometimes they just show the fear of someone who has waited too long and doesn't know how to protect themselves without closing off their heart. So don't rush to judge that part of yourself. Don't treat it as an enemy. It was born to protect a wound that at one point felt far too big to carry, but what shielded you for a season might not be what you need to step into the next one. Mistrust might have kept you from putting yourself out there too soon, but if it keeps ruling every decision you make, it can also keep you away from connections, opportunities, and experiences that are nothing like your past. Isolation might have given you a safe space to breathe, but if it becomes your only way to feel safe, it will only reinforce the belief that no one can get close without hurting you. It's not about throwing open every door or handing over your trust without discernment. It's about understanding that protecting yourself and locking yourself away are not exactly the same thing. Something deep inside you needs to learn that difference all over again. Maybe the real struggle isn't that you've stopped believing God can do something good. Maybe you still believe in His power, but you struggle to believe that you can actually receive good things without losing them, ruining them, or suffering all over again. That wound doesn't just ask if something good will come. It also asks, what will happen to me when it gets here? Will I be able to trust? Will I be able to enjoy it without constantly waiting for it to end? Can I really step into a new chapter without carrying all the fear of the last one with me? For now, it's enough to just acknowledge that the struggle isn't just in your circumstances. It also lives inside that part of you that desperately wants to move forward, but keeps looking over its shoulder, trying to make sure the pain won't catch up with you again. And it's precisely by understanding how fear, guilt, comparison, and the need for control operate that you'll begin to realize why your heart feels so incredibly tired, even on those days when apparently nothing wrong is even happening. This is where the first part of our journey begins, taking an honest look at those inner voices without letting them make your choices anymore. Fear usually shows up first. It doesn't always come with a clear picture or a specific reason. Sometimes it just shows up as a constant tension, trouble resting, or this urge to double-check things you've already verified. It tells you never to let your guard down, never to trust too much, and to brace yourself for another disappointment. It uses real lived experiences to justify its presence. It reminds you of the goodbye you never saw coming, the opportunity that slipped away, or the choice you made when you trusted someone who ended up lying to you. So you conclude that if you stay alert to everything, maybe this time you won't be caught by surprise. But living in a state of constant vigilance doesn't mean you're protected. It means forcing your body and mind to stay locked in a battle that often only exists in your imagination. You can be sitting in a quiet, peaceful place, yet on the inside, feel like you need to fix something right this second. No one is rejecting you in that moment, but your mind is already preparing a defense for a goodbye that hasn't even happened yet. That old fear takes a mere possibility and presents it as absolute fact. The most helpful question you can ask is there a real danger right in front of me, or is a past experience trying to explain what I don't yet know? Telling the difference between old fears and real danger doesn't mean ignoring important warning signs. If someone is disrespectful, if a situation threatens your safety, or if a decision carries clear consequences, you need to look at it seriously. But when there aren't enough facts yet, fear can easily fill in the blanks with stories that always end in disaster. Wisdom observes, asks questions, and waits for information. Distrust decides the ending before even knowing the whole story. One helps you walk with wisdom while the other can keep you from taking any step at all. Guilt also wears away at your hope, though it speaks from a different place. While fear tells you that something bad might happen, guilt claims that you yourself caused everything that went wrong. Maybe you look back on a decision and think, if only I had acted differently, today my life would be so much better. Maybe you ignored a warning sign, stayed in a relationship for way too long, walked away from an opportunity out of insecurity, or said something you still wish you could take back. Some decisions do need to be acknowledged. There might be something you need to correct, an apology you need to make, or a responsibility you must take on. But taking responsibility is not the same as condemning yourself. Responsibility looks at what happened and asks, what can I learn and heal from this? Condemnation looks at what happened and declares, you don't deserve another chance. God can show you where you went wrong without declaring your entire story a loss. His correction is never meant to humiliate you, but to help you move forward with a wisdom you didn't have before. And remember, not every loss was caused by a mistake of your own. Other people make choices, change their minds, make mistakes, and often act out of their own deep wounds. Realizing this doesn't mean dodging your own responsibility. It just means you don't have to carry the full weight of a story where other hearts and minds played a part. Comparison, on the other hand, works in a very quiet, subtle way. It can start simply by scrolling through your phone and realizing someone else just got exactly what you've been waiting for so long. One person announces a major career step. Another is celebrating a new relationship, a healed family, or an opportunity that seemed completely impossible. You want to feel happy for them, but at the same time, something deep inside you shrinks. The question creeps in, when will it be my turn? The comparison turns someone else's joy into a yardstick for everything that's supposedly missing in your own life. You see their success, but you don't see the whole journey. You don't know the sleepless nights of uncertainty, the past losses, or the painful decisions that they never posted about. Still, your mind compares their most highlight-worthy moment with your most vulnerable season. But your life isn't part of some race that God set up to compare timelines. Someone else's blessing doesn't mean that you've been forgotten. What came to them doesn't shrink the possibilities that are still out there for you. Maybe you haven't gotten that big answer yet, but you've learned to set a boundary. Maybe your external situation hasn't changed, but you no longer react with that same level of despair. You might not see the open door just yet, but you started to prepare yourself in ways you used to avoid. That kind of progress doesn't always make for a stunning photo, but it's still incredibly real. The urge to control often comes from the exact same place. After going through things you couldn't see coming, you might feel like you have to micromanage every single detail to keep things from falling apart again. You plan, you double-check, you confirm, and you ask questions, but peace never seems to last very long. The moment you resolve, one worry another one pops up. Control promises safety, but it demands you stay on high alert at all times. It whispers that resting is dangerous, and that trusting means leaving yourself exposed. But carrying heavy burdens that aren't yours to bear doesn't prove you have more love or faith. Often it just shows that you've forgotten your own limits. You can walk alongside someone without controlling their every move. You can care for your family without assuming that everything rests on your shoulders. You can prepare for an opportunity without demanding to know every single detail of how it turns out. Letting go of control doesn't mean you stop caring. It means focusing on what's actually in your power and accepting that there are limits. No amount of worrying can ever change. None of these heavy feelings make you weak or lacking in faith. The real issue starts when you stop seeing them as just feelings and start letting them rule your life. Feeling afraid doesn't mean you have to back down. Feeling guilty doesn't mean your whole story is a failure. Feeling left behind doesn't mean God has forgotten about your path. Feeling uncertain doesn't mean you have to figure everything out right this second. Faith doesn't instantly quiet these voices, but it can help you put them in their place. You can hear them without obeying their every command. And there is a deeply human story in the Bible that shows what happens when someone reaches their absolute limit, loses all perspective, and feels they simply can't go on, right before they discover that God was actually much closer than they ever imagined. In the first book of Kings, chapter 19, we find the prophet Elijah going through one of the most fragile moments of his life. Just before this, he'd gone through an intense experience. He had faced a difficult situation. He had seen a powerful answer from God, and he seemed to be in one of the strongest moments of his journey. From the outside, anyone might have thought Elijah was filled with confidence, and that after everything he'd been through, he had no reason to fear. But a single threat completely changed his inner state. When he received the news that his life was in danger, Elijah fled. Fear completely consumed his vision. He walked out into the wilderness, leaving his servant behind and continuing alone until he sat down under a bush. A man who had once spoken with such courage was now isolated, exhausted, and lacked the strength to make sense of his own story. Elijah looked at his situation through the lens of sheer exhaustion and felt he just couldn't go on, as if everything he had done had lost its meaning. This moment reminds us of something so important. A person can have experienced incredible things with God and still go through a season of deep exhaustion. Faith doesn't make you immune to feeling tired. You might have been strong for others, supported your family, and made hard decisions, but there comes a day when your inner self can no longer manage to process everything you're feeling. When your body and mind are exhausted, reality can seem so much darker than it actually is. Elijah wasn't seeing his entire story. He was only looking at the fear of that day and the strength he felt he had lost. But look at how God approached him. He didn't start with a rebuke. He didn't ask him why he was afraid after seeing so many things. He didn't demand a spiritual explanation, nor did he force him to get up right away to continue his mission. An angel touched him and told him to get up and eat. Elijah found some bread and water, ate and drank, and then lay down again. God tended to his exhaustion first. Before giving him new instructions, he let him rest. Before speaking about the future, he looked after his body in the present. The angel came back and said, "Get up and eat because you have a long journey ahead of you." Those words didn't dismiss Elijah's exhaustion. They acknowledged it. The journey went on, but God didn't expect him to walk it with strength he no longer had. Maybe you've been asking God for a complete answer, when what you really need first is simply the strength to take the next step. Do you want to know how it's all going to end? What choice you should make, and when? Things will change, but God might begin by meeting you in a much simpler way, reminding you that you need to rest, eat, ask for help, or stop demanding your mind to figure out your entire life in a single night. God's care doesn't always show up as an explanation. Sometimes it comes as a much-needed pause. After receiving nourishment, Elijah walked to Mount Horeb and entered a cave. There, God asked him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" It wasn't a question from someone who didn't know where he was. It was an invitation for Elijah to express what he was carrying inside. The prophet spoke of his struggles and of the feeling of being completely alone. Elijah had come to believe that he was the only one standing firm. When you think that no one understands, that no one can help you, and that everything rests on your shoulders, every single problem begins to feel so much bigger. Then God invited him to step out of the cave. There came a powerful wind strong enough to shatter the rocks. After that came an earthquake, and then a fire. But the story says God was not in any of those things. Finally, there came a gentle, quiet sound. God didn't draw near through the roaring noise that Elijah might have expected. He came in a quiet, peaceful way. When you're desperate for an answer, you might think God has to do something huge to prove he's still with you. You look for an unmistakable sign, a door that opens right away, or some visible transformation, powerful enough to wipe away all your doubts. but his presence can draw near in a much quieter way. It might be in a clarity that grows little by little, in a truth that comes back to you over several days, or in a tiny decision that starts to give you back your sense of direction. Not everything that matters makes a lot of noise. God showed Elijah that his story wasn't over. He gave him new instructions and corrected the idea that he was completely alone. There were other people who were still standing strong, even if Elijah couldn't see them from inside the cave. And on top of that, God was going to bring Elisha into his life. Elijah wouldn't have to face the entire future the same way, or carry every single burden alone. God's answer wasn't to promise him a life free of danger. Instead, he gave him back his perspective, showed him that there was still a purpose, that there were people he didn't know yet, and that the future held companions who hadn't arrived yet. The best may be yet to come, not because all your problems will vanish all at once, but because there is still strength. You will receive people who will step in paths that you just can't see right now through your exhaustion. The cave wasn't Elijah's final destination. It was just a place of transition. Maybe you too have mistaken as the end, a place where God is actually starting to look after you in a different way. Maybe this season isn't asking you to prove you have more strength. It might be showing you that you need to receive, to rest, and to stop trying to walk this road all by yourself. Don't give up now. Not because you should ignore your fatigue, but because exhaustion doesn't know all the possibilities that are still out there. And this truth isn't just found on the pages of the Bible. You can see it in everyday life, too. Claudia was 49 years old and worked in the office of a small family business. Everyone around her thought of her as organized, responsible, and always able to find a way to fix just about any problem. If anyone ever needed help, Claudia was always there. If something unexpected came up, she reorganized everything. Over time, that strength turned into a silent burden. 2 years earlier, she had invested her savings into a small project with an acquaintance. They had planned every detail, but the other person backed out as soon as the first difficulties appeared. The project fell through. Some of the money was lost, and their relationship was ruined. Shortly after, Claudia applied for a better position at her company. She had taken on new responsibilities for years and thought they would finally recognize her hard work. The opportunity was given to someone else. She kept getting up, working, and helping her family, but a thought began to take root deep inside her heart, a conclusion she never spoke out loud. Maybe my time has already passed. Whenever anyone brought up new projects, she'd say she preferred not to get too complicated. If an opportunity came up, she quickly found a reason to dismiss it. She said she was just being realistic, even though, deep down, she was terrified of investing her time, her hopes, and energy into something that might end badly. She believed God could open doors. The hard part was imagining he still wanted to open one for her. One night, she got a message from an old colleague who told her about a management course and encouraged her to sign up. The offer didn't promise a job or an instant transformation. It was simply a training program lasting a few months. Her immediate reaction was to find reasons to say no. She thought about the cost, the time, her age, and everything that could go wrong. But then she realized she wasn't just deciding on a course, she was deciding whether she would let an old disappointment keep making decisions for her. That night, she whispered a brief prayer. Lord, I don't know if this is for me, but I don't want to reject everything just because I'm afraid. She didn't feel any sudden overwhelming certainty. No immediate answer came. However, the next day, she went ahead and asked for more information. That tiny step was the beginning of a shift. Claudia enrolled, organized her schedule, and went back to studying after many years. During those first few weeks, she felt out of place and thought about quitting, but she chose to stick with it. Not because she had stopped feeling insecure, but because she understood that fear didn't have to vanish completely for her to keep moving forward. By the end of the course, one of the instructors mentioned that an organization was looking for someone with administrative experience. Claudia hesitated, throat clearing, before sending in her resume, but this time she didn't let doubt make the decision for her. She was called in for an interview, and a few days later she received an offer. The new job didn't solve all her problems. She had to adapt and accept that she wouldn't have control over every single detail. Even so, something deep inside her had transformed. Claudia was no longer living as if her best possibilities had been left behind. The best things that came into her life didn't. It was not just a job. It was reclaiming a part of herself that had been hidden behind fear. She started making plans again, carefully but without closing herself off before even starting. She learned to ask for help and to recognize when she was exhausted. Some days she still feared making a mistake, but she no longer let her emotions rule her life. Maybe as you listen to this story, you thought of an area in your own life that also came to a halt after a disappointment. Claudia didn't get a complete map. First, she got a simple invitation. Then she asked for details, and later on she decided to go after an opportunity. The best part started long before the final decision. It started the day she stopped letting her past loss automatically decide everything to come. In your own story, the first step can be just as simple. Sending a message, asking a question, updating a document, seeking help, resting before replying, or admitting that a situation no longer brings you peace. But when that opportunity arises, you will need to distinguish between healthy guidance and the urge to act just to escape your exhaustion. That clarity isn't born from rushing. This is where hope meets the more practical side of the journey. The first tool is an honest prayer. There are times when the most sincere prayer doesn't sound like a confident speech. It sounds like someone who stops pretending and says, "Lord, I want to keep believing, but I'm so tired. I don't know if this desire comes from your guidance or just my need to escape. Help me to see clearly." You can talk to God about what you want, but also about what you fear. You can tell him that an opportunity excites you while admitting at the same time that it stirs up insecurities. Honest prayer doesn't force God to answer right away, but it can help you hear what the inner noise was drowning out. When you put your feelings into words, you begin to tell the difference between a real need and a reaction born from a wound. After praying, let there be a moment of silence. You don't need to fill it right away with another request or explanation. You can just sit quietly for a few minutes, breathing and remembering that not everything has to be resolved in this very moment. When fear starts to build, come back to the present. Try to breathe in slowly and breathe out gently. As you do, remind yourself, I am not yet living through everything. My mind is imagining. This thought doesn't deny that you have worries. It just brings you back to where you actually are. Writing down what is happening inside you can also help. Divide a page into 3 parts. What I am feeling, what I actually know, and what I can responsibly do. Maybe you fear making a mistake again, but what you actually know is that an opportunity still needs to be evaluated and that you can ask for more details. What you can responsibly do is to do your research, talk to someone with experience, and make a decision without rushing. Your fear deserves to be heard, but it doesn't have to automatically become an order. To tell the difference between caution and old fears, ask yourself, what evidence do I have right in front of me? Does this worry belong to this situation? Or does it look too much like something I went through before? Am I being guided by clarity or by an urgent need to stop feeling uncomfortable? A healthy direction doesn't always come with absolute certainty. Sometimes it is built through several things coming together. A growing peace, concrete information-wise advice, and the feeling that you can move forward without betraying your values. That is why it's also important to talk to a safe person. Not someone who decides for you, but someone who can listen, ask questions, and respect that the final decision belongs to your own process. The book of Proverbs, chapter 15, verse 22 says, "Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed." This doesn't mean listening to everyone or gathering opinions until you are even more confused. It means carefully choosing voices that bring wisdom, experience, and peace. You also need to look at the fruit of what lies ahead of you. Some opportunities look attractive, but they demand that you ignore your boundaries. Some relationships speak of a future, yet they bring constant insecurity, disrespect, and pressure to give up what matters to you. Not everything that excites you is guidance, just as not everything that scares you is a sign to back away. Ask yourself, can you act with honesty? Is there room to speak up and ask questions? Are your boundaries respected? Does this path help you grow, or does it force you to constantly prove that you deserve to be there? Peace does not always mean the absence of nerves. You can feel afraid of something new and still feel that it has a healthy foundation. Just as you can feel excited about a situation that eventually reveals manipulation exhaustion or a loss of dignity. Discernment takes observation, time, and truth. Remember that moving forward doesn't always mean accepting a new opportunity. Sometimes the healthiest step you can take is to say no. It might be an offer that demands more than you can give, or someone who wants to come back into your life without taking responsibility for what happened. The best that is yet to come doesn't mean you have to accept just anything out of fear of ending up with nothing. A boundary can also be an act of faith. It means believing that rejecting what destroys you won't cancel all your future possibilities. At the same time, don't let the search for perfect certainty become just another way of staying stuck. There are decisions where you will never have all the guarantees. Even after, pray. Seek wisdom. Listen to counsel and observe the fruits. There may come a time to take a step with the information you have. Faith doesn't mean having control over the outcome. It means moving forward, responsibly knowing that even if you need to adjust your direction, God can keep guiding you. The real test will show up when you return to the ordinary moments of everyday life, because it's easy to feel hopeful while listening to a message that soothes your heart. What will show how much you are changing on the inside is how you react when someone takes too long to reply when a problem comes up at work, or when a decision triggers that part of you that's still afraid of making a mistake. That's where another important part of this journey begins, bringing faith into the small reactions of everyday life. It can happen when you get to work and someone tells you they need to talk to you. You don't know the reason yet, but your mind starts racing ahead of the facts. In that moment, you can take a breath and tell yourself, I don't know what this is about yet. I'm going to listen before deciding what this means. You aren't saying everything is going to be easy. You're just stopping yourself from suffering in advance over a story you don't even know yet. Something similar happens in relationships. You send an important text and the other person takes longer than expected to reply. You check your phone over and over, and you start remembering other times when silence turned into distance. That old wound tries to explain the present. Healing begins when you manage to stop that automatic reaction. You can ask yourself, is there a real sign that something has changed? Or am I reacting out of a past experience? Maybe you decide to wait a reasonable amount of time. If the silence continues, you can speak up clearly, but without starting with an accusation. This doesn't mean justifying endless silence, a lack of interest, or hurtful behaviors that keep repeating and hurting you. Faith doesn't force you to put up with just anything, hoping that someone will change someday. Wisdom looks at patterns, not just an isolated moment. If you're always the one searching, explaining, fixing, and holding things together, maybe you need to recognize that a healthy relationship shouldn't depend entirely on your effort. The best things to come shouldn't force you to chase after someone to prove you deserve to be loved. It can begin when you decide not to sacrifice your dignity just to keep an unstable presence in your life. In families, too, there are moments where you must distinguish between supporting and controlling. Sigh. You love someone who is making decisions that worry you. You talk, give advice, and pray, but they don't seem to listen. Your intentions come from love, but the outcome can lead to complete exhaustion. You can't live someone else's life. You can offer help, warn them of a risk, and be present, but you won't always be able to stop someone else from learning through their own choices. Trusting God within your family means recognizing your human limits. You can say, Lord, show me what is mine to do and what I need to leave in your hands. Faith also plays a part in career and financial decisions. Job offer, a project, or an opportunity to study can stir up excitement and fear at the same time. Not every decision will come with immediate certainty. You can look over the terms of an offer, consider the financial impact, and recognize if you truly have the capacity to take on the change. You shouldn't mistake caution for a lack of faith. The bills that have to be paid and your limited resources don't disappear just because you've heard a word of hope. Saying the best is yet to come doesn't mean ignoring the numbers. You can ask for provision while also looking over your expenses, reorganizing priorities, looking for new options, or asking for guidance. Faith and responsibility don't contradict each other. Sometimes something new starts in a simple way. Some training, a connection, a conversation, or a skill you decide to develop might seem like steps that are way too small compared to the need you have. Yet, not every important beginning comes with big news. The book of Zechariah, chapter 4, verse 10 invites us not to despise small beginnings. Maybe you were hoping for a complete answer, but first you'll receive direction. Maybe you were asking for stability, and the start will be a modest opportunity that will let you move forward over time. Mature hope learns to recognize value in what's being done without demanding that everything be completely finished. There will be days when putting all this into practice will seem hard. A piece of news can throw you off balance. A simple comment can trigger an old insecurity, and you might react in a way you thought you had already overcome. Don't turn a difficult reaction into proof that all your growth was fake. Restoration doesn't throat clearing happen in a straight line. The fact that an emotion comes back doesn't mean it has taken over the same space. Before, maybe you would give in to it immediately, but now you begin to recognize it, ask questions, and choose a different response. That space between what you feel and what you choose to do is a sign of growth. Yet, even after learning to act with greater wisdom, there is a question that can come back during the longest seasons. What do I do when I pray, move forward responsibly, and yet God still seems to remain silent? This is one of the most delicate parts of this message because it touches the place where faith and weariness stand face to face. When a prayer has been left open for a long time, any delay can start to feel personal. You've spoken with God, you've asked for direction, and you've tried to move forward. Yet the answer you're waiting for hasn't come. So the silence begins to fill with interpretations. Maybe God isn't listening to me. Perhaps this request doesn't matter. It could be that nothing will change. These conclusions don't necessarily come from a place of rebellion. Often they come from a weary person trying to understand why they keep praying without seeing a clear sign. The Bible doesn't hide these kinds of questions. Psalm 13 begins with an expression that is deeply human. How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? David was speaking from the experience of someone who felt that time had dragged on for far too long. This shows us that you can feel the silence of God without completely losing your faith. The simple act of asking him the question reveals that a relationship still exists. You can draw near to say, Lord, I don't understand where you are in the middle of this. That prayer also belongs to faith. You don't need to turn every conversation with God into a display of certainty. You can speak from your confusion without fearing that he will pull away because of your questions. The silence is not an automatic proof of abandonment, but we shouldn't fill it with explanations we don't have. There are times when, with the passage of time, a person understands why a door didn't open. Yet, there are also experiences that remain without a full explanation. Faith doesn't need to claim that every delay is a specific preparation, or that every pain was sent to teach you something. There are situations born of human decisions, injustices, and circumstances beyond our control. God doesn't need to be painted as the author of every wound for us to recognize his presence within it. He can walk with you through something you didn't choose, help you respond with wisdom, and prevent what happened from becoming the final definition of your future. Saying that the best is yet to come doesn't mean promising that every situation will turn out exactly the way you want. It means remembering that even when a specific answer doesn't come, as you hoped, your story is not reduced to that absence. In some journeys, the first thing that begins to change is not on the outside. While you pray for a door to open, you might be learning not to walk into just any space out of desperation. While you wait for a relationship, maybe you are reclaiming your ability to recognize affection without accepting control or disrespect. While you long for an immediate answer, a more peaceful way of making decisions might be growing inside you. In Psalm 13, after expressing his anguish, David says, "But I have trusted in your mercy." The situation had still not been explained. David began to remember who God was, even before understanding what God was doing. That can be a way to endure during the silence. Not by claiming you know why everything happens, but by saying, I don't understand this season, but I refuse to interpret my pain as proof that God has stopped loving me. You can keep praying without forcing yourself to feel certain. Every single day, when God seems silent, you can also keep going, doing what you already know is right. Take care of your responsibilities, seek guidance, look after your emotional health, maintain the boundaries necessary, and let life keep moving forward around the question. You don't have to freeze all your plans until you receive some extraordinary sign. Perhaps the most honest question to ask isn't simply why God isn't answering. It might be, what am I waiting to change before I allow myself to start living again? Perhaps you have placed your peace on the other side of an answer. You told yourself that you would rest only when this situation is resolved, that you would start planning again only when someone returns, or that you would feel worthy only when an opportunity finally chooses you. Without realizing it, you hand it over to a future circumstance, and the power to decide how you will live today. It is about letting go of merely wishing for change. It is about not giving up on your own life while you keep waiting. The silence has no authority to declare that your future is over. When you understand this, waiting stops being a room where you are kept trapped. It can become a season in which you rebuild your life, reclaim your identity, and keep building even while some questions remain unanswered. Waiting on God does not mean standing completely still or putting your entire life on hold until an answer appears. Mature patience looks like someone who keeps tending to what they have, learning and making responsible decisions, even when an important part of their story is still unresolved. You can keep hoping for change without handing all your days over to its absence. The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verse 1 says, "There is a time for everything, and everything wanted under heaven has its hour." These words are not meant to convince you that every pain is easy to accept. They are to remind you that no single season contains your whole life. The moment that feels endless today also belongs to time. It is not eternal, even if some days it truly feels that way. It does not permanently define who you are or what is possible for you. Not every season of waiting should be treated the same way. There are situations where you genuinely need patience because the process takes time. But there are also times when waiting has simply become a way of avoiding a decision you have to make. You might say you are waiting on God when in reality you are just afraid to close a door and a chapter, or accept that someone does not want to build the same future as you. Patience and resignation produce very different fruits. Patience keeps your heart open and your hands active. Resignation snuffs out desire and starts calling destiny a situation that perhaps needs to be faced. If you are waiting for a career opportunity, patience might drive you to prepare, send out applications, and sharpen a skill. Resignation will make you believe it is no longer even worth trying. If you are waiting for your family to heal, patience can help you maintain a respectful communication and working on what is yours to do. But patience does not force you to tolerate disrespect. When you desire a stable relationship, waiting with maturity doesn't mean accepting just any connection out of fear of being alone. This waiting can also become a time of reorganization. Perhaps you discover that your days are filled with other people's obligations and that there is no longer any room to attend to your own needs. Maybe you notice that you have kept chasing a relationship and approval or a result that drains your strength without offering stability. Can you ask yourself, am I trying to hold on to something that is no longer mine to carry? Do I stay here out of conviction or out of fear? What part of my life have I neglected while waiting for this situation to change? Maturity also includes reclaiming your identity. When a weight drags on, you can begin to define yourself by what is missing. You see yourself as the person who hasn't gotten the job yet, who hasn't received the response, or who didn't manage to restore their family. Yet you are more than that unanswered prayer. Your worth does not increase the day a door opens, nor does it decrease when someone decides not to choose you. Continuing to live doesn't mean forgetting what you desire. It means refusing to surrender all your days to an absence. You can still receive goodness while a prayer remains open. A shared meal, a sincere conversation, an afternoon of rest, or a small victory. Do not betray your desire for things to change. They are reminders that your life continues to be valuable. Before the main answer arrives, the best that is to come might not appear concentrated in a single event. It can start as a series of quiet movements, reconnecting with a friend, learning something new, recognizing an opportunity, resting without guilt, or stopping your search for an explanation that never comes. There will be days when you simply feel tired. You can say before God, "Lord, I want to learn through this process, but I also need to admit how much it hurts to keep staying here." You don't need to turn every difficult day into a lesson. Some days just need to be lived through with companionship, rest, and the certainty that feeling tired doesn't mean you have given up on your faith. Waiting with maturity doesn't demand that you stop hoping for an answer. It teaches you not to destroy yourself while it arrives. Don't give up now, but don't lose yourself trying to stay strong. Take care of your heart, review your boundaries, and keep focusing on the present. Some seasons of waiting awaken wounds of abandonment, rejection, and betrayal that need to be tended to with Care before you can receive what is new without living in fear of losing it. Abandonment usually leaves a silent question. What is in me that makes people leave? Even though you rationally know that the decisions of others do not define your worth, that wound can interpret every distance as confirmation. Someone takes a while to reply, and you don't just feel the silence of that day. You also remember other times when a delay ended in a goodbye, and so you react to the present with all the intensity of the past. You might send several messages to feel secure again, or you might decide to pull away first so that no one else has the chance to do so. The heart is trying to protect itself. Healing begins when you can look at that response with compassion and recognize what I feel might belong to what is happening today, but it is also being amplified by something I went through before. That clarity creates space between the wound and the decision. You can still feel fear, but you no longer need to respond immediately from it. Healthy trust is not given all at once, but it isn't denied forever either. It can be built gradually. You watch to see if words match with actions, if your boundaries are respected, and if there is a willingness to talk when something hurts. You don't need to rush to prove that you've already healed, nor do you need to remain completely closed off to prove that you learned the lesson. Betrayal causes another wound because it doesn't only alter the way you look at others, it can also make you distrust your own perception. After discovering a lie, maybe you asked yourself, how did I not see it before? Will I make a mistake again? Rebuilding trust in yourself does not mean assuming you will never make another mistake. It means recognizing that today you possess experience and clarity that you didn't have before. You can ask questions you used to avoid and observe the results over more time. You can also accept that having trusted does not make you naive. The main responsibility for a betrayal belongs to the one who decided to deceive. Maybe there were signs you didn't recognize. But that doesn't mean you should punish yourself forever for having believed. Rejection also leaves marks. Now that you not being chosen, you can start doing too much to prove that you deserve to stay. You make yourself available even when you are exhausted, taking on responsibilities that are not yours and avoiding saying what you think for fear of causing discomfort. Not everyone will know how to recognize your worth, and you cannot exhaust yourself trying to convince them. The fact that an opportunity didn't choose you doesn't mean you lack ability either. Your dignity is not negotiated every time someone decides to stay or leave. True, restoration does not mean becoming indifferent. It consists of grieving a loss without using it as proof that you will always be rejected. Perhaps you've tried to heal through pressure. You tell yourself you should already trust or get over an experience that happened long ago. But the heart does not learn security under pressure. It needs truth-time boundaries and relationships where it doesn't have to constantly defend itself. God knows the story behind every reaction. He knows the exact moment you started to believe you had to do everything on your own. When did you stop asking for help? And why does a delay trigger so much fear? His presence doesn't come to shame you. It comes to remind you that you can learn a different way to respond. Restoration doesn't mean you will never remember what happened. It means the memory will no longer have the same power to control the present. You can let someone help you. Maybe you got used to being the one who always listens, fixes things, and holds everything together. When someone else tries to care for you, you feel uncomfortable. Learning to receive is also a part of healing. When someone offers you a kind word, try not to brush off its importance right away. You can just say thank you. When someone you trust asks how you are doing, maybe you can share a real piece of what you are feeling. You don't have to open up your private life to the whole world. You just need to stop living as if asking for support is a sign of weakness. If these wounds continue to deeply affect your relationships or your daily life, seeking professional help doesn't go against your faith. God can care for you through prayer, His Word, a safe community, and people trained to guide you through complex processes. You don't have to choose between having faith and asking for help. The best is yet to come, but not because you have to forget what you went through. It can come precisely because you are learning to turn your experience into wisdom without letting it become a prison. Abandonment has no authority to write the end of your story. Betrayal cannot decide that you will never trust again. Rejection does not define your worth. Maybe you don't need to become a stronger version of yourself. Perhaps you just need a life where you don't have to prove your strength all the time. From this understanding, a different voice is born deep inside you. A voice that doesn't deny your wounds but also won't let them keep dictating everything that lies ahead. Listen to these words with a calm heart. They aren't meant to deny what you feel or force you to believe that everything is already fixed. Their purpose is to remind you that your emotions can be heard without becoming the absolute authority over your future. Today, I realized that my story didn't end where I was hurt. What happened might have changed the way I look at life, but it doesn't have the right to decide what can still begin. Fear can speak, but it will no longer be the only voice I listen to. I can feel insecure and pause before I obey it. Not every silence means abandonment. Not every delay means rejection. Not every hardship confirms that I chose the wrong path. I will wait for the facts before writing off my future. My past can teach me without ruling over me. I no longer need to treat everything unfamiliar as a threat. I can move forward with caution without shutting every door. Trust doesn't have to be born fully formed. It can grow through consistent actions, honest conversations, and time. My worth doesn't depend on whether someone chooses me. A person can change their direction, a relationship can end, and an opportunity can be given to someone else, but none of those decisions have the power to define who I am in the eyes of God. I won't chase after affection just to prove that I deserve to stay. I can love deeply and sincerely without losing myself. I will no longer call it love if it forces me to live in fear. I can close a door and still believe there are other kinds of blessings I haven't even discovered yet. The best is yet to come, and it doesn't have to look like what I lost. It could be a more peaceful life, clearer relationship, a job where my hard work is respected, or a season where I no longer have to struggle all the time just to feel like I belong. My life isn't running behind. I don't need to measure my journey against the visible milestones of someone else. Someone else's story can inspire me without becoming an accusation against mine. My process has its own pace. Restoration doesn't always begin with great news. It can start when I stop speaking to myself so harshly, when I accept help, or when I admit that a situation no longer brings me peace. Guilt won't have the final say over my choices. If I made a mistake, I can admit it. If there's something to fix, I can work on it. But I won't turn a failure into a life sentence. I can learn without destroying myself. I can take responsibility without constantly punishing myself. I can rest without feeling like I'm giving up. I wasn't made to live in a constant state of emergency. My body needs care. My mind needs a break, and my heart needs spaces where it doesn't have to prove anything. I don't have to carry the weight of every situation just to prove my love. I can stand by my family without trying to control every choice they make. Waiting won't rob me of my ability to live. While a prayer remains open, I can still learn, build, rest, and receive the blessings that are already right here around me. My joy won't be locked behind a single door. I don't need to recreate the past exactly to have a beautiful future. God can do something new without repeating the past. The best is yet to come, and that doesn't mean I will never face hard times again. It means that my current pain doesn't tell the whole story. There are still people I haven't met, strengths I haven't unlocked, places I haven't reached, in forms of restoration I don't even know how to name yet. I won't declare finished what's still in progress. Exhaustion doesn't know the future. Disappointment might remind me of what went wrong, but it doesn't know everything that can still go right. Not giving up can mean keeping on going, but it can also mean stopping, resting, asking for help, or changing a direction that was destroying me. Faith isn't always shown insisting on the same thing. Sometimes it's shown by accepting that God can guide me down a different path. I can let go of an old vision of the future without giving up on hope. I don't need to know every single detail of what's coming next just to take my next step. God can keep guiding me while I learn. His presence doesn't depend on me making perfect decisions. Today, I choose to treat myself with more compassion. I can correct myself without putting myself down. I can recognize my limits without calling myself weak. I can accept that I need support without feeling ashamed. I don't have to go through this all alone. Today, I realize that peace can also be part of my future. It doesn't all have to come with urgency, confusion, or a constant struggle. Clearing throat. I can receive something good without constantly waiting for the moment it will all slip away. My heart is learning that stillness isn't dangerous. God can still surprise me. None of this requires me to feel completely secure today. It is enough just to keep one possibility open. The possibility that not everything will end up like before, the possibility that a different answer isn't a lesser answer. The possibility that my story still holds more goodness than I can see today. And the best is yet to come. And as it gets closer, God is also teaching me to receive it with a freer heart. After so many words directed to your mind and heart, there comes a moment when you don't need to analyze anymore. You just need to breathe. Just let go of whatever you were trying to figure out just for a moment. You don't have to figure out right now why something happened, or when the answer will come, or how God is going to change what you were going through. You can just stay here, exactly as you are, with the faith you have today, and the questions that still haven't been answered, and the exhaustion you have probably tried to hide. Breathe in slowly, not to deny your worries, but to remind your body that in this very moment, it doesn't need to fight every single scenario your mind has imagined. You can silently say, God, I don't have to carry it all at once. When a difficult thought comes, you don't need to follow it to the worst possible outcome. Just acknowledge, this worries me, but I don't have to figure it out in this exact minute. Not every urgent thought means there is an urgent situation. God doesn't pull away just because you rest. He doesn't lose control when you close your eyes. Put your phone down, or admit that you just don't have the energy today to keep thinking about the same things. Psalm 46 verse 10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." Stillness doesn't mean abandoning your responsibilities. It is an invitation to stop acting just for a few moments as if everything depended on your constant watch. Your worrying doesn't hold your family together. Your repeating thoughts don't control the decisions of other people. There are some things that are in your hands and you can take care of them when the time comes. But there are other things that were never under your control. In silence, you can say, God, help me focus on what is mine to handle and let go of what isn't mine. Letting go isn't always a one-time decision. Sometimes it's a practice you repeat every time you realize you picked up that same heavy burden again. When worry creeps back in, you can say, Lord, this is returned to my thoughts. I lay it before you once again without any guilt. Maybe for a long time you thought that trusting meant never feeling afraid. But trust can still exist even when fear is present, and you choose not to let it control your every move. Now think of the phrase that touched you the most in this message. Maybe it was, my story didn't end where I was hurt. Maybe you need to remember not every delay means denial. Or maybe the truth that stays with you will be, I don't have to put my life on hold while I wait for an answer. Choose one. Let it carry you through the next few days. The best things don't always start out as something huge. It can begin with a more peaceful night, a heartfelt conversation, or a decision that brings back your self-respect, and it can start when you accept that you need help, when you rest without feeling guilty, or when you stop replaying a situation you can no longer change. The best things might come as a quieter life. Maybe you were expecting a transformation visible to everyone, but God is starting by giving you back a peace that for years seemed impossible. Don't underestimate this gift. God isn't only in the future you're trying to reach. He is also right here, in this very moment where you still don't have all the answers. His presence isn't a prize reserved for when you finally manage to overcome everything. You can hold on while you're still learning. You don't have to show up strong before him. You can come to him tired. You don't have to offer up a perfect faith. You can come with just a little hope and say, Lord, this is all I have today. Maybe today you just need to say, God, I can't see the whole path, but I don't want to give up here. That phrase might be enough. Clear his throat. Hope doesn't always move forward at a run. Sometimes it moves forward just by breathing, by staying close to God and refusing to give up on what you still don't understand. Now think of just one area of your life. It could be your family, a decision, a relationship, work, or a financial worry. Don't try to solve it right this second. Just lay it before God. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, today I come to you just as I am. I don't want to hide my exhaustion, my questions, or the parts of my heart that are still afraid. You know the things I've tried to explain and also everything I couldn't find the words to say. You know the nights when my body rested, but my mind was still awake. Do you know how hard it's been for me to keep hope after so many disappointments. And why, a part of me, started to think that maybe my best days were already behind me. That's why, Lord, I'm not here to pretend I'm strong today. I've come to ask you to hold me up when my mind tries to turn a delay into rejection. Help me wait for the facts before condemning my future. When the silence wakes up, old memories remind me that the present is not bound to repeat everything I went through before. When I feel afraid to trust, give me discernment to recognize the difference between caution and shutting myself away. Don't let an old wound keep making decisions for me. Teach me to protect my heart without closing it off completely. Clear his throat. Help me observe with wisdom, respect my limits, and not give my trust where there are no fruits of honesty, respect, and consistency. But also deliver me from treating every new possibility as if it hid the same disappointment. Give me serenity to see people, opportunities, and the paths for what they truly are, not just for what my fear imagines they could become. Father, I lay before you the experiences that still hurt. I surrender to you the abandonment that made me feel replaced. I surrender the betrayal that led me to doubt even my own perception. I surrender the rejection that tried to convince me that I had to strive harder to deserve love, recognition, or a place in other people's lives. Help me stop repeating against myself the words that once made me feel inadequate, incapable, or hard to love. May my identity not be built on a goodbye, a criticism, or an opportunity that didn't choose me. Remind me that my worth doesn't change every time someone decides to stay or leave. My worth doesn't depend on a position, a relationship, a sum of money, or the speed at which my life moves forward. You know me completely and don't reduce me to the worst day of my story. You look at my mistakes, but you also see my desire to learn. You know my limits, and don't reject me for needing them. Give me the grace to look at myself with that same compassion. When I make a mistake, help me acknowledge it without destroying myself. When there is something to fix, show me the right way. Don't let guilt turn a mistake into a permanent sentence. Teach me to take responsibility without constantly punishing myself. Lord, I also surrender the comparison. Forgive me for the times I looked at others' lives and concluded that mine was lagging behind. Help me rejoice in the blessings of others without feeling that they diminish the possibilities that still exist for me. Don't let the visible speed of someone else make me look down on the steps I am already taking. Maybe I haven't arrived where I want to be, but I am no longer the same person who started this process. Help me recognize the small steps forward. Give me patience to build without demanding everything to appear finished. Father, I surrender my need for control. I confess that many times I have tried to anticipate every problem, watch every detail, and hold responsibilities that were never entirely mine to carry. I thought that worrying was a way to protect the ones I love. But today I realize how much living as if the world depended on my watch has exhausted me. Show me what is mine to do. Give me the discipline to attend to my responsibilities and the humility to ask for help when I can no longer go on alone. At the same time, teach me to let go of what doesn't belong to me. I cannot make decisions for everyone. I cannot control their reactions, their changes, or the time they need to understand. I cannot force a door to open nor rush a process with my anxiety. Bring peace to the space where my responsibility ends and what only you can carry begins. Father, I bring my family before you. You know the situations that worry me, the unresolved conversations, and the people I have prayed for in silence. Give me the discernment to walk beside them without trying to control. Teach me when to speak and when to listen. Help me to be present without losing myself in everyone else's needs. I also surrender to you, the ones I love who are making decisions today that I don't understand. Protect them, guide them, and put wise people in their path. Remind me that you can be close to them, even in the places where I cannot go. Lord, I lay before you my professional and financial life. You know, my responsibilities and the worries that arise when resources seem insufficient. Give me the wisdom to manage the courage to seek new options and the patience to build responsibly. Bring the right conversations and honest opportunities my way. Do not let despair drive me to accept just any conditions, nor let fear make me reject every possibility. Help me to examine every door without anxiety. If a door is not meant for my path, give me the peace to not enter. If a season needs to end, give me the courage to close it without thinking that I am also closing off my entire future. If a small opportunity comes along, help me not to overlook it. Father, I place my relationships before you. My desire to be loved, understood, and supported. Keep me from chasing after affection just to prove that I deserve to stay. Do not let me confuse love with anxiety, presence with control, or patience with tolerance for disrespect. Give me relationships built on truth, reciprocity, and the space to talk things through. If a relationship needs healing, work in the hearts involved. If a connection can no longer offer a healthy life, grant me the strength to accept that truth without turning it into a judgment on my worth. Help me understand that closing a chapter doesn't mean I will never be loved again. The best that is yet to come does not have to look exactly like what I lost. Lord, guard my mind. When my thoughts begin to race, bring me back to the present moment. When I imagine painful scenarios, remind me that I'm not actually living out my worst fears right now. Help me tell the difference between a worry that requires action and a repetitive, though that just drains my strength. Give me the wisdom to reach out for help when I need it. Let me never use faith as an excuse to hide the things that require support, guidance, or professional care. Give me the humility to accept that care. I don't want to keep believing that asking for help makes me weak. I want to learn that there is also strength in admitting I can't carry this alone. Father, restore my ability to rest. For a long time I've lived as if letting my guard down was dangerous. Teach me to enjoy quiet days without constantly looking for a hidden threat. Let me enjoy a conversation, a meal, or good news without immediately wondering when it will all end. Help me believe that peace can be real too. Not every good thing has to disappear. My heart can learn to feel safe little by little. Lead my soul beside quiet waters. Teach me to accept support, to receive a kind word without pushing it away, to accept help without worrying about the strings attached to welcome an opportunity without constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. My God, when it feels like you are silent, help me not to automatically view that silence as abandonment. Let me speak to you with complete honesty. Let me tell you how much it hurts to wait without feeling like my questions offend you. When there is no explanation, comfort me with your presence. When I don't have a complete answer, give me the strength to take the next step. When I can't see the path ahead, shed just enough light so I don't feel like I have to figure out my whole life in a single night. Help me keep doing the things I already know are right, taking care of my responsibilities, honoring my boundaries, speaking with honesty, resting when I'm exhausted, asking for advice, and not giving up on life while a prayer is still unanswered. Father, today I choose to believe that my story didn't end where I was broken. I don't know exactly what the future holds. I can't promise that I'll never feel afraid again. And I don't know if what I'm hoping for will show up in the way I imagine. But I don't want to keep writing off as lost what I haven't even experienced yet. Your word says in Psalm 27, verse 13, I would have lost heart unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Today, I hold on to that truth not as a guarantee that everything will go according to my plans, but as a conscious choice not to limit your goodness to just one specific outcome. I can still see it. I see it in the strength to get back up, again in the wisdom to not go back to a situation that was destroying me, in the arrival of the right person, in an opportunity I hadn't even thought of, in the healing of my mind, and in the peace of embracing a different path. Your goodness can find me in so many ways. So, Lord, help me not to give up now. When giving up feels like abandoning all hope, remind me that there are still possibilities. When holding on to the same thing is destroying me, show me that not giving up can also mean changing direction. Give me a flexible faith to follow you so that I can let go of an old vision of the future without letting go of your hand. The best is yet to come. Maybe it will arrive as a visible answer, maybe as an unexpected door. It might appear in the form of restoration, inner freedom, or a life more peaceful than I ever imagined. I don't need to know its exact shape today. I only need to keep my heart open and responsibly take the step right in front of me. If today I must rest, let me rest without guilt. If I need to make a call, give me courage. If I need to ask for forgiveness, grant me humility. If I must set a boundary, give me strength. If there is an opportunity that deserves to be explored, keep me from rejecting it solely out of fear. And if I need to wait, teach me to wait without giving up on myself. Beloved Father, place a new peace upon the person who is listening to this prayer. Touch the place that has grown the most tired. Embrace the part of the heart that still fears losing again. Bring calm to the mind that has spent too much time anticipating trouble. Remind them that they don't need to solve everything today. Give them clarity for what they can do and rest concerning what they cannot control. May they sleep with less of a burden tonight. May they wake up tomorrow without feeling like their entire story depends on a single piece of news. May they recognize over the coming days the small movements of restoration, an idea, a new strength, a conversation, or a decision they wouldn't have been able to make before. And when fear returns, may they find a firmer truth within themselves. Not every delay means rejection. My story did not end where I was hurt. I don't have to abandon my life while I wait. God is still with me even when I don't understand this process. Lord, thank you that your presence doesn't depend on everything going well. Thank you that you don't pull away when I am tired. Thank you that you can find me under the bush, inside the cave, and in those inner places where I thought there was no path left. You know how to restore me and give me back my perspective. You also know the people who are yet to arrive, the opportunities I cannot see yet, and the strength I will receive to face what lies ahead. My exhaustion does not know the future. My disappointment cannot write it either. That is why today I place my story in your hands. Not because I already understand everything, but because I don't want to keep carrying alone what's too heavy for me. Guide my steps, protect my heart, clear my thoughts, give me discernment, rest, and a serene hope. One that doesn't depend on intense emotions or on immediate answers, but on the certainty that I can still walk with you in the name of Jesus. Amen. Before you go, write in the comments, God, I am not giving up. I believe the best is yet to come. Make this a personal declaration, not to deny what you are going through, but to remind yourself that this moment does not hold your entire story. So share this message with someone who is tired of waiting and needs to find hope again. Your kind gesture could bring this word at just the right moment to someone who feels stuck today. And keep this truth close to your heart. You don't need to know everything that lies ahead to keep going. Just take the next step, walking hand in hand with God. There might still be questions, but there is also a path forward. You might still feel weary, but you are not alone. And even if you can't see the full picture of how things are unfolding today, don't declare finished what God can still restore, redirect, and transform. The best part of your story doesn't have to be behind you. There are still days you haven't lived, people you haven't met, strengths you haven't discovered, and depths of peace you haven't yet learned to receive. Don't give up now, and remember, you will always have a space here to breathe, believe, and start over.